Hey everybody, it's Jake, and we're back with another Niche Site Project 3 call with Ryan Spatafora, and it's been a few weeks at least, probably over a month, since you've heard from me and Ryan, and I know some of you have asked, what's going on, so we're excited to check in, and today we're going to be talking about some link building strategies for Ryan's website, and I'm going to go through that, but without further ado, let's bring in Ryan. Ryan, how have you been doing, man?
Good, Jake. I've been just really busy.
Yeah?
And I know people have been checking in and think that I was kidnapped or something, um, or there were problems or something. But everything's good. I've just been really busy and been in content mode. And I found out that I'm very slow at generating content.
Yeah?
Um, yes, but the good news is that I think the content's really good, and I think ultimately it's going to be some of the best in my niche.
Hmm.
So I think that bodes well,
Yeah,
but I've got to just find a way to get it done quicker.
definitely. Nope, totally. And I've read most of what you've written, if not all of it, and I agree that it is good stuff. Even learned a thing or two myself here. I'm going to be coaching my kids' t-ball team coming up here
Hey,
in
all
a few
right.
weeks, starting in April. So yeah, I picked up a couple of tips from you. So if that makes you feel any better, that keep me from making mistakes as a
It
coach. So that's good.
it does, and the t-ball thing is something I definitely want to make a decent part of the site because
Really?
I think that there is, it seems like in my research, there's a lot of demand for that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of parents out there that, get thrown into this sort of coaching
Mm-hmm.
t-ball thing and really don't know where to start or where to go. So it's definitely something I think I'd like to address in depth
Yeah.
on the site.
It's actually a
And
good
I'm
point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just started my baseball season up as
Okay.
well. So actually, a lot of the stuff I've been writing about, I've been putting into action myself, and it's it's really helping. So
Cool.
yeah,
Very
and
nice.
you'll be happy to know that my team out here in Colorado, we're the Colorado Hitmen,
Okay.
and our hats this year are going to be Cincinnati Reds
Really?
uh, hats. Yeah, the C will
Oh.
stand for Colorado in this case, but
Okay.
I'll soon
Cool.
be rocking a Reds hat. So there
Very
you go.
nice.
Yeah.
I am happy to know that. All right. Well, hopefully you guys have a better season than the Reds are about to have because it's going to be ugly around here.
Yeah.
So that's
It's
my
gonna
wish for you.
it's gonna be a rough one for you guys, I think. Rebuild, rebuild.
Yes, rebuilding, of course. Cool, man. Well, no, it's good to check in and get back together. And I think I was even sharing this with Spencer. I think on the content side of things, you're definitely behind when compared to the other two people that are part of Niche Site Project. I just kind of checked
Mm-hmm.
in with where they're at, and
Mm-hmm.
it's understandable. I mean, just with the stuff that they have going on, they've got Samara and Colleen have more time to dedicate to it, and so that's part of the thing. But what I told Spencer was, Ryan's got a lot going on at work, and then I know at least sometimes you kind of do some night jobs and things like that in addition to your family. And I was like, and he's squeezing that in around it. So I think, honestly, what you're going through is very relatable, probably for a lot of people who read niche pursuits and maybe people listening to this call, that it's not always roses. When you get in there, it's tough, and it's tough to carve out that time. But yeah, I think that the quality, it's all a long term play. So that's the thing that I would say is, I know that it's frustrating, and I'm pulling for you. I want you to be successful sooner rather than later. But the quality is important. You don't want to get to the point to where you get impatient and you start doing a crappy job with what you're doing just because you're in a hurry to get something done. I think that that's a mistake. So,
Yeah.
do as much as you can, but obviously quality over
Quality.
quantity is the way to go. So I'm with
Yeah,
you there.
yeah. I'm like, my personality doesn't allow me to like generate poor quality.
Hmm.
I think in my mind, at least. I mean, like, I I can't turn in something that I'm not like 100% behind. So that's part of what takes me so long, I think, is um, I'm really hard on like the information I'm providing, and I'm doing like a lot of research, and because I know a lot about my niche,
Hmm.
um, it makes it, I think, harder in a way, because I can tell when what I'm researching isn't the top of the line information. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So it's like I don't want to include this because I don't know that this guy knows what he's talking about. And so it's made
Right.
it a little harder. I've had to dig a little deeper, and actually a lot of stuff, some of the stuff that I've included has just been my own take on
Sure.
things.
Yeah.
Some of it. Um, so yeah, it's been crazy. And I don't know if you could just hear my phone ringing, but that was work calling me, of
Okay.
course. Um, Not that I'm answering right now, because I'm
Yeah.
not.
All right.
But I just turned my phone on silent. So.
All right. Well, let's dive into it and get rolling for today. So, as I mentioned, call number 5, we're going to talk about link building strategies, and so I'm going to give you, the whole thing here is there's a million different things that you can do, and a bunch of different approaches. I'm going to share with you the ones that I've followed for my sites that have been successful, and where I feel like that your time is best spent when it comes to this. So I'm going to start out by talking about giving a little bit of background of what this is all about and why it matters and that sort of thing, and then we'll dive into a handful of specific strategies, and at the end I'll kind of wrap it up by giving you some advice on how much time you should really be spending there, now that we're sort of mixing this in with content creation and the other things that you're doing as well. All right. So
Sounds
if
good.
you have questions along the way, as always, feel free to stop me and chime in, and I'd be happy to answer those.
You got it.
So first thing about link building is that it's all about quality and relevance. And so that's really what, and you may already know this, but just to let everybody know, link building is really, it is important for SEO and for ranking in the search engines. And the best way, the example I often use, the best way I know to describe it when I talk about quality and relevance, is that it's really about the more quality people that link to your site. It's kind of like a vote of confidence in the eyes of Google for your site to say that it's really high quality. So in your case, you're doing a site about baseball training and skills and things like that. So if you had somehow acquired a link in a story from, I don't know, let's just say ESPN.com or something like that, that would be a huge link. I mean, it's about as authoritative as a source as there is in the sports
Mhm.
related niche. And one link from ESPN.com to me would be worth 1,000 links from other small timey blogs or unrelated sites or just kind of crappy stuff. I mean, there's no comparison. Like, to me, it's all about quality over quantity. So I don't really get caught up trying to build tons of links. I try to get a few strategic ones, and then I sort of let my content and my keyword research be the driver behind everything else. But it does matter. But I would say that the other factor is relevance here. So the other sites that we'll talk about, I don't get too hung up on looking at domain authority, and obviously the higher the authority, the better. But if I feel like I can get a pretty good link from a site that's similar to yours, so it's another guy who's a baseball blogger or something like that, and even though by the metrics his site isn't super authoritative, it's still a really relevant site. Those are the kind of links that I look for as well, and we'll talk about some of that, because domain authority isn't fixed. I mean, it's a snapshot in time. In other words, what I mean is, like, the people that you're linking to now, your site right now is brand new, it has no authority at all. Those don't really matter a whole lot to that site. But one day, if you build this
Mhm.
site up, you will start achieving authority, and at some point, maybe a couple years down the road, you might have a pretty authoritative site where that link is suddenly a quality link. So if you flip that around in reverse, if you get a link from a newer baseball blog or something like that, but you feel like they're writing quality stuff and it's a legit site, to me, that's still a good link to have, even if it has little authority today. I don't know what that site's going to be like in a couple of years. So if it feels like a decent site, those sorts of things I'll look at as well. So I just want to point that out, that it's not like it's completely worthless if it's not a high domain site that's linking to you. But the ultimate goal of link building I mentioned the SEO benefits, but the ultimate goal is traffic. So, getting people eyeballs on your site. And so that's where, there will be times where you'll get links, you'll hear terminology like no follow links, which basically just
Hmm.
means, like, for instance, sites like Wikipedia and things like that, when they do links out, it's a no follow link, which means it doesn't pass any link juice, as
Juice.
they say,
Right.
or whatever, pass any authority in the eyes of Google and the other search engines. But it doesn't always matter, even though it doesn't directly benefit you maybe in the eyes of the search engines. If it was a link like that, like on, let's just say like a Wikipedia or something like that, where it's going to drive traffic to your site, that's still a good link, because the goal here is to get traffic to your site, get eyeballs, get new readers, people you can follow up with, and things like that. And so keep that context in mind as well as we sort of venture into this. And then I also just wanted to mention not to worry about anchor text. And so this stuff is kind of old school SEO, where people wanted to sort of manipulate anchor text when they were creating links. So the actual words that are linked to your site might be baseball training or baseball skills or whatever, how to hit a
Oh,
baseball,
okay.
that sort of thing. I don't even worry about it. Like, you'll read stuff about people wanting to have a certain ratio of this many have exact match anchor text on my keywords and crap like that. And I'm just like, whatever, like, if I can pick up a nice link from a relevant site, preferably one that has some authority, I'm good with it. I don't care what the words say. I mean, that's just the way that I feel about it. So I don't even think about it. A lot of what I'm going to give you, some of it, well, the majority of it are things that I learned from an article on Brian Dean's Backlinko site, 17 untapped backlink sources, that I read years ago, and he's since updated it. It was one of his first posts, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, or whatever it was, and I read it at the time and started implementing some of these things, and several of them have worked well for me, and so that's what I'm going to kind of go through today and show you. But I just wanted to point that out, that the majority of these, probably all of these, I didn't invent them. I read them somewhere else and kind of put them into practice and maybe put some of my own spin on it. And so that's
Okay.
where we'll be. That's where we'll be headed today.
Great.
So, sound good so far?
Sounds good.
All right. So the first one I'm going to talk about are heads up emails. This is very simple, and it's just emailing people that you quote, people that you link to, people that you reference in some way in your content that you're publishing, and just give them a heads up about it. And so this is a really short email, just informative. You're not asking them for anything. You're really just saying thank you. So, I mean, the shorter the better on these emails. So, like, you publish something, and frankly, I sort of alluded to this when we were talking about where to start with content, and that's
Yeah.
why we
Hmm.
started with the post that we did, pulling together ideas and stuff on some of our keywords, because we are featuring a lot of ideas and stuff from other influencers and other sites that are similar to yours. So it's a great opportunity to start there and just say, hey, I did the ultimate guide to whatever, and just want to let you know that we included your idea about X, Y, and Z. Really awesome tip. Thanks, Ryan. You know what I'm saying? Just a real 2, 3 sentences, and that's it. And people respond really, really well to that. It's something I've done with my own sites. You don't ask them for a link, but a lot of times people will share that either by linking on their website, putting it on their social media, or both, without you even having to ask for them to do so. And so it definitely can pay some benefits there. But at the
Right.
very least, it's a good networking thing to sort of make a relationship with somebody else that's kind of in your niche that you can come back to, and you sort of did them a favor first by featuring some of their content on your site.
Right on.
Make sense?
Sure does.
Important point here is that if you don't do this, they'll probably never see it. And so that's the important thing to remember, is like, a lot of people aren't monitoring, especially, once they're sort of established and they've got a decent sized site and they've got other things going on. They're probably not out looking to see, oh, geez, who linked to me today, and that sort of stuff. So, if you write about them and quote them in your post and link to something that they wrote, they're never going to find out about it unless you send them an email and say, hey, just want to let you know, man, put it your idea here and it was awesome, thanks. And they love to be recognized. I mean, that's just a general thing about all of us. When you put somebody in a good light, they're appreciative of it and they like it, and so a lot of times they'll want to show that off as well. So there's a little bit of element of ego bait there, that works in your
Right.
favor. Yeah, and so I sort of already mentioned this, but keep the email very short. People aren't going to want to spend a lot of time reading it. They don't need a whole backstory and everything. Just basically you're saying thanks, and then I try to include one specific compliment. That's something that I do that just makes it feel personal and not a template. So if you included this guy's idea about how to hit off of a tee, I would just say, hey Justin, just wanted you to know, just published the guide to this, included your idea about whatever, how to hit off a tee. Thought that was really good. And that's it. That way that it kind of shows like, yeah, I read it and it feels a little bit personal and it kind of rings a bell. Like, oh yeah, I remember writing that. And it sort of makes a connection a little bit better is my opinion on that one. Cool?
Cool.
All right. So once you've done that, another place to start is with a few directories. Now, directories are old school, easy to get links, and a lot of them have been de-indexed over the years, and so the vast majority of them are a waste of time and maybe even a bad idea to do. But for me, there are 2 or 3 that usually when I'm first starting out a site, I will go through and try to put my site in their link directory. And so it's kind of like a phone book for the internet, some of these directories. And some of them are industry specific, which is pretty cool. But the thing that's important here is that you only want to worry about non-spammy, manually approved directories. So there are some out there, like I said, that have sort of been de-indexed and things by Google over the years, that they were just anybody could submit whatever and people were putting garbage on there, and it was just sort of this automated thing. But there are still some directories out there that are, you submit it and somebody reads the submissions and sort of manually approves the sites that go on, and some of those still do have a little bit of value. It's not going to shoot you up number 1 to the search engines, but again, it's something you can do proactively when your site is new.
Right.
Start getting your things indexed and things like that. And so I consider it kind of like a base of links. So here's an example, is that it's nice when you can find some industry specific directories, and I put one on here for you, baseball-links.com. And if you go there, it is basically what it sounds like. He has a bunch of different subcategories, and it's just a huge directory of baseball sites across the internet. The site's really old. It looks old, but that's good. It has
I think I
authority.
came across that one.
Yeah, so that's a place that you should be going and, submitting manually and saying, hey, man, I got this site. Now that you've got a little bit of content up and you're starting to look like a legit website, and be like, hey, what do you think? And you got a pretty good shot of getting listed on there.
Yeah.
A few others that I've done, especially the first 2, I've got, most of my sites are on these, and the other 2 were, Brian Dean had mentioned these in his original version of the article I mentioned earlier, but Alltop is a manual directory. This RTT directory, and you can kind of come back to these later, Directory World, and then one called All the Websites. So if you guys look those up, you'll see them, and again, they're not, in most cases, super visually appealing, but they're legit directories. They're not spammy garbage, and so those would be worth your time to take 5 minutes on each of them. And usually you have to put in your site name, tell what your site's about, that sort of thing, and then they'll kind of review it and most of the time add you to their directory, and it gets you a link that points back to your site and carries a little bit of authority with it.
Cool.
So it's a good starting point. The next one is broken link building. Are you familiar with this concept?
Yeah, a little bit. I've read a little bit of it. I think on Backlinko as well. It's basically finding links that are broken, that are relative to something that you might be able to replace the link with.
Yeah.
Something? I'll let you explain it.
Sure. No, you're pretty much right on. So finding broken links on someone else's site, let them know about it, and then in the next sentence, basically ask them to add yours. So the idea is pretty cool. It's been around for a while, and this one works really well. It can be, I usually do all this manually and stuff. There's probably tools out there that kind of make it better, but I like sort of digging into it, because I think that the key in a lot of this stuff, and you'll hear this, I'll probably say this a few times, like I did with the heads up email, what I've found I feel like works really well is when you do personalized things. And so I try to, like, I don't know, I don't do things that are easy to automate and all that kind of stuff. Like I spend some time and I do some manual outreach here, and I try to, like, I don't know, I try to put something in that email to make it realize make them realize that I stand out a little bit, and I actually took a little bit of time. I was reading your site, that sort of thing, and I'm not
Hmm.
just Joe Schmo that's blasting a million people looking for a link. And so broken link building fits that description, because you're going, looking at their site, finding a broken link, saying, hey man, just giving you a heads up, I was checking out your list of resources, this one's not working, you may want to take a look at it. Oh, by the way, I also have something you might want to check out, and you're pretty much asking for a link that way. And so the quick way to do this, there's a Chrome extension if you're using the Chrome web browser, which I do. If not, you can and should.
I use Chrome
Okay,
for everything related to um, my niche site. I use Chrome. So
cool. So check my links is a extension you can add on there. So if you go to like the Chrome add-ons store or whatever, and you look for check my links, you'll get it. Just a little button you can click. And so when you're on a page, you click the little check my links button, and it'll scan every link on that page. And the ones that are green, those are like valid, good links, and the ones that are red are messed up in some way. And so it'll tell you, and what you're looking for is ones that say a 404 by it, and I'll show you that in a minute. But those are
okay,
just basically like the page doesn't exist. So that's like a true broken link there. And that will sort of be your guide to contacting that person and saying, hey, this link was broken, just want to let you know, and then let them know about your site as well. And because you're giving that person value up front, that's sort of the logic behind this, of why it tends to work better than just cold outreach and just asking for a link with no real reason, because
hmm,
you're sort of doing them a favor before you start. So you can do this by Googling things like, and this is just an example of a query string here. So like your niche, so in your case, baseball, and then the plus sign, and then if you say in URL links, just like I have there, what that's looking for is like in the actual URL, in the web address of the page, it's got the word links there. And so sometimes people will have that on their site, like they'll have a list of helpful links, and the page will be called helpful links or whatever. So that's
gotcha.
in the URL. But there's a bunch of different query strings like this that you can do. You can plug in different things besides baseball. So like, hitting and whatever, like some subtopics and things like that, and do sort of different combinations. So there's no limit here. Other things you can do is just the word resources, or blog roll, or there's just all kinds of different things. And so I'll give you some ideas as follow-up, just search queries you can do to kind of get the ball rolling. But if you do plenty of those, you'll come across a lot of lists of links and stuff that you can go in and check out.
Cool.
Yeah, so keep going through those different combinations, keyword searches, and then even if you don't find a broken link, I go ahead and email them anyway, because I'm spending time here to do all this, to do the search. And if I go find somebody's site and I do find, oh, hey, they do have a list here of their favorite baseball sites, or sites very similar to mine, and I would really like to be on that list, and I run my little check my links, and all their links are good, I've gone to that level of effort. I just go ahead and email them anyway and just say, hey, just want to let you know, I really enjoyed your list here, and whatever. I might pick a site and say, in particular, I love the site you talked about this, or something like that. Just want to let you know, I've got this site. If you think about, add me to your list, I'd be honored. I say something like that and just call it a day. And every once in a while they will. So, once you're already on the site and you've already checked it out, you might as well just go ahead and send the email.
Yeah. What do you think your conversion rate is for this type of stuff in
Um,
general?
I think it's good, but I've never really like tracked it. Like, so,
Right.
and it's not a bad idea. Like, it depends on sort of what you like and your personality type, I guess. Like, some people will
Hmm.
keep a spreadsheet here and sort of mark down who they've contacted, did they get back to me, and that sort of thing. I've
Hmm.
never really gone to that level of effort. I just start rolling and just doing it. You know what I mean? And I kind of
Hmm.
do it in spurts. But I'm gonna guess and say like 10% or something like that would get back to me and end up in a link when I really do this, like legit broken link building. Um, that's a total guess, but I feel like that's pretty solid,
Sure.
because you can roll through it pretty quickly, and you're getting a really high quality link here, which sort of goes back to the very first point we talked about. A lot of
Right.
these sites are aged domains that have authority, and when they add you to, replace a broken link, or a list of resources that they have, it's relevant, it's quality, and so it's well worth your time.
Great.
So let me show you one here. I'm going to exit out of the presentation and go to Chrome really quickly. So here's that search that I just mentioned to you. I did baseball and then NURL links. So you can see the first thing that comes up is that baseball links directory that I mentioned to you before. But
Mm-hmm.
here's another one, this baseballnews.com. Another thing that you can do just kind of for your reference and so you can prioritize things is in Chrome there is a like a Moz bar. Have you heard of that? It's an extension.
Yeah, I have it
Okay.
actually.
So if you do that, you can. Mine's just on this little where it just kind of shows me the domain authority of the site that I'm on at the time. But you can turn
Mm-hmm.
it on to where it'll show up for your search results. So as I'm scanning down this,
Right.
I can kind of see the authority of the sites that I'm looking at, and maybe if there's something that's super low authority or whatever, I don't even mess with it or something like that. But at least you kind of know what you're looking at before you click on all these links. But I went ahead and clicked on this baseballnews.com and open up this page here, and this is sort of what it's got. And it's old school looking, but it is a domain authority of 44, which is
Mm-hmm.
really good. And so I was on here, and they have links by topic, and so inside of each one of these is sort of a sub page. So I went to instructional, thinking that this would probably be the best sub page for your site. And then my check my links button is up here. So if I click on it, you'll see how this works. And notice that they're all valid, so they're all green. So on this page, he doesn't have any broken links, which, whatever. All right, so what I would do, I just go back, and then I go look at a different subcategory, because I'm not really worried about finding a link in my specific subcategory. Like, I'll check a few of these pages, because if I can just find a broken link somewhere, that still just gives me a
Mm-hmm.
good reason to contact him. And so I just went to his jobs page here, and now he's got a bunch of them. So if I'll usually confirm by just sort of right clicking and opening a new tab and sort of make sure that that is a 404 page, and it is here,
Mm-hmm.
so you can see that. So now I would take the step of going and finding his contact page, which would be on here somewhere, might be on his about page or whatever, but I would do what I need to do to get back to his homepage, that sort of thing. Find out how to get in touch with the guy and go ahead and send that email. And again, just very short and simple. Hey, really enjoy your list of links. Thought it was really helpful. Just thought you might want to know. This one's messed up. Oh, by the way, I got this site. Thought it might be a good fit for your instructional category. That sort of thing. Have a nice weekend, Ryan. That kind of deal. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. So I'll get in, dive in, and do some of this. And like I said, you can mix up the combinations here, and then you can go through pages and pages and pages. Another thing that you can do, just a little, I'll do it sometimes when I'm sort of testing things out. How do I? Up here under search tools,
Mm-hmm.
by default, it's looking at things that were done sort of last updated anytime, but you can do a custom range here, and so you can try to filter this down. It's not perfect, but it's a good way to find stuff that's like really old, and you have better odds with older stuff, like stuff that hasn't been updated for a few years, that they're going to have broken links and outdated information. So you can come here and set a custom date range and say, like, I only want to see things from January 1st, 2002 to 12/31 2009, and hit go, and it'll filter out the stuff and just show you pages that were last updated on that date. So now you can see this youth baseball page. It kind of shows you the date here: 2008, 2006, 2005, that sort of thing. That's a way you can filter down and try to find some older pages.
Gotcha.
All right.
This was good
So
stuff.
yeah, thanks. Broken link building. Any questions about that?
No, that was good. That's kind of stuff I wouldn't have thought of necessarily doing. So, yeah.
Cool. Yep, it's a good one. It's probably one of my favorites. I feel like it's one of the more effective ones, and it's a really good use of your time. Like I said, I'll send you, and I'll probably just put it in the article along with this video as well for everybody else, but just a handful of different search queries that you can kind of try, in addition to that NURL links that I mentioned, that are good ways to find some of these pages.
Cool.
The next one that I've used with a lot of success, and this one I totally heard about from Brian Dean years ago, started using it, and it's been awesome. It's been great for high quality links. And I may have mentioned it on some of our previous calls, but Help a Reporter Out, Haro for short, Haro. If you go sign up for it, all you're going to do is get emails every weekday. usually 3 times a weekday. So like they have like a morning, lunchtime, an afternoon edition or something like that. But it's typically journalists, bloggers, etc. But most of the time it's really high quality sources. Sometimes like super authoritative stuff, like big time newspapers and stuff like that, who need a source. All right. So you're helping the reporter out. So like they're up against a deadline and they need somebody who can give them a quote about whatever. And so in the email, it's just going to be a huge list of links. And they're going to be like these prompts to say, hey, I'm Jan from the Washington Post. I'm writing a story about, eating vegetarian food or something like that. And I need somebody to give me a story about how a vegetarian diet changed their life or something like that. And so if you respond back to Jan, she'll say on there, like, I need this by tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And Jan's looking for somebody to quote in her story. And most of the time, along with that, Jan's going to link back to their website, if applicable. And so you say, hey, I'm Ryan from here, the creator of, and you put in your site name, that sort of thing. And then you give your response to it. And if they quote you, most of the time they'll link back to you. And as I said, you get some really, really high authority, high quality, high traffic driving types of quotes, which are really, really big for your brand and really, really big for SEO. And so I love this one. And it's absolutely free to do. So all you have to do is respond to queries that are remotely related to your site. And so that's what's important here is for you, you're going to find some that are about baseball, but they always have I think they call it like a lifestyle and fitness category, and it's full of stuff. And so they have a ton of stuff that's about exercise and fitness and things like that. And I think that's absolutely related enough to what you're doing for relevance there. So like if you can pick up links on fitness sites, there's certainly a fitness and conditioning element to baseball. And so again, it's just about picking up that really high quality link. So this is certainly something that I would suggest that you sign up for and start keeping an eye on and just kind of scan the list. If there's something that jumps out, write a really good response to it and call it a day. But, I would say I don't track this very good to tell you what my success rate here. But for different small niche websites I've done, for stuff I did for Longtail Pro, all kinds of things. I've been quoted as an expert in big time publications for stuff that I am. To say that I'm an expert is a gross overstatement. So it's really about being the most helpful response that person gets. That's what this comes down to. And so I try to, when I do this is sort of my help a reporter out strategy for you. Okay. So, and anybody else who's listening, is my aim is to be the most helpful response that person gets. So whatever the heck it is that they're asking about, like I'll provide other links, other information to help them. Like if it's a really big one, especially that I really want to be on, like I'm just going to respond back. And I've been on, by the way, I've been on the other side of this too, with Longtail Pro. Like we had a authoritative enough site that we could put out Hero queries looking for responses, and it was awesome that way as well. But from that, I sort of was able to see the other side, and a lot of people will respond back and be like, hey, yeah, I'm whoever, and give you some crap about their credentials and be like, call me if you want to quote or if you want to interview me or something like that. And I'm just like, I would never do that. And the whole thing is this person's up against a deadline. They're in a hurry, So in that initial response, the key is just to nail it. Give an awesome answer, something that's really going to help. Like I said, even if it's something that there were times it's stuff that I really didn't know that much about at the beginning. Like I knew a little bit. I would go take 10 minutes and do some quick research online, find a couple of places to sort of send them to and be like, I really agree with Jeff who said this, and I'll link to Jeff's story. And so I just really try to kind of go above and beyond. And I felt like that I had really good results there and definitely a lot of big time links that I acquired through this strategy.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's my second big one that I think you should mix in and start at least taking a look at, something you could do over your lunch break or whatever. You can kind of squeeze it in throughout the day and take 10, 15 minutes and, give a good response.
How often do you do that? Are you still do you actively check like all the time for stuff like that? Or do you do it in sort of like chunks when you're looking to do backlinks?
Yeah, I do it in chunks, honestly. And I'll talk about sort of give you some ideas about frequency and how often to do these things here in my last slide. So I won't steal my thunder there, but let me talk about this last thing here, and then we'll talk about that. Sound
Cool.
good? All right. Other ideas. So this is something, again, Brian Dean thing. I've done it, not a lot, but I've done it for one or two of my sites. And these are just proactive things that you can do. So, a lot of the broken backlink or the broken link building and the hero stuff, like you really can't control that. Like you can't make somebody quote you and give you a link. You can't make somebody, they might just say, hey, thanks, and not put your link up. You can't, you're not like guaranteed a link at all. But there's other sites like these feedback sites, and these are basically like people will submit their site and get sort of feedback from the community on the look of your site, which you might find interesting anyway. But they
Right.
also can be a source of links. So here's a couple that Brian mentioned: conceptfeedback.com and suggestionbox.com. And like I said, you sort of fill out a little bit of form, and then people will kind of critique the look of your site and that sort of thing. But it also serves as a backlink, and I believe it is a do follow backlink to your site on these. And so it's kind of a dual purpose thing to take a look at there.
Nice.
Good one for early on.
Yeah.
Another thing is to create an infographic, which is a great asset to share. And I'm just throwing this out there as something to be thinking about, not necessarily something you should do today, but
Hmm.
maybe a few months down the road, because I think you're in a good market that if you thought of a creative topic or the right kind of infographic, I feel like you could really get something good with baseball that would be very
Yeah.
shareable, that a lot of people would want to put on their site and in turn link back to the original source, which would be you.
Yeah, definitely. I've thought about this a little bit, and I feel like with baseball, there's a few sort of markers throughout the baseball season,
Hmm.
like the All-Star break and things like that, that if you can make infographics that are sort of relative to those sort of higher visibility times for the game, I
Yeah,
guess, in a way,
yeah,
you have a good chance of sort of catching on because people are sort of focused on content in that direction at those times. Does
yeah.
that make sense?
Hmm.
So it's something I've definitely put some thought into. But
Totally. The thing is with that sort of stuff is like you can take other ideas that have worked, not even about baseball, but just other concepts that have worked, and you may find a way to apply those to baseball. So it doesn't have to be about baseball skills. It could just be like interesting stats or just sort of stuff that baseball fans in general would want to know. Because again,
right,
your goal here is to acquire links and to acquire people on your site, and so you want something that's very shareable. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about the core of what your site is going to be about. So like I don't know, I feel like I've seen infographics before of like the highest paid it was something about college football. It was like the highest paid state employee in your state is most likely a college football coach or something like that.
right, right.
So, it could be something geographic where it's, the best baseball player to come from your state or something like that. So there's tons of ideas, but just something to sort of be tossing around in your mind. And I would encourage you to jot down ideas as you get them. That one day I think that could be a really good asset for you when you have maybe a little bit of money to invest in somebody designing it and that sort of thing, or if it's something
Yeah,
you want to take a crack at yourself. But it definitely needs to like look good for somebody to share it.
yeah, definitely.
And then of course there are infographic sharing sites as well, like visually and things like that. That's sort of what they do, where you can submit your infographic, and if they like it, they'll publish it, and it gives you a really nice link there to kind of start getting the word out a little bit. And then the final thing that I'll mention here, and this one is just very simple: cold outreach. So these are just very short emails to people in your niche to let them know about your best content. And so I mentioned that a little bit before of like, if you try broken link building and you don't find a broken link, just go ahead and send them an email. It sort of fits into that category. But this is something you can kind of mix in, and I'll talk about frequency here in a moment, but not spend a lot of time on, because this will probably be the lowest success rate of anything we've talked about, because it is, it's sort of link begging in a way of, hey, you
Hmm.
want to give me a link? But you don't even necessarily have to ask for a link. Just you have another baseball blogger, a guy who's talked about or writes about or links to stuff that's like your stuff. Send him some of your best material. Hey man, really like your site. Just, hey, if you want to, I put together this. Thought you might like it. Check it out. Have a good weekend. That sort of thing.
Right,
Just
right,
real casual. Like, you're not really like up front saying, hey, link to me, but that's kind of what you're going for.
right.
Just sort of fishing a little bit there. So mixing in some cold outreach can't hurt. Some people will do it. But again, it's something where you have something that's real short, real easy to send. You're not spending a lot of time there. You're sort of just churning through it. So cool. All right, so let's talk about how much time to spend on this stuff. So I started out by saying that links do matter. They absolutely matter and probably will for the foreseeable future. It's always quality over quantity. So don't worry about I need a ton of links. Like, I mean, to me, if you could land, like if you're doing hero queries and you land a link to somebody quoting you about the value of stretching or something like that, and it's on some big like fitness website or something like that that's sort of loosely connected, and that is somewhat relevant to sports, fitness. They're all sort of connected. When I say relevant, like what I'm saying, like those are connected. If you were quoted on something that's about fixing your muffler, you know what I mean? Like that's completely unrelated to baseball. So if it's loosely related, let's call that relevant. The more relevant it is, the better, but whatever. Beggars can't be choosers. But if you could land like a huge authoritative link like that, like that's awesome, man. So I mean, you get a handful of those, like you'd be set, in my opinion. You could just go on
Right.
building content and not have to worry about it anymore. And then just in the course of
That's
doing this stuff, people are going to link to you eventually. Like when you start picking up traffic and you start to rank for things, like you're going to get links, like that stuff will happen. So by doing the proactive stuff, really focus on quality. Don't worry about, oh, I got to have X amount of links. I just don't think it works that way. If you get a few good ones, your content and your keyword research is going to take care of the rest. So as far as how much time to spend, do your heads up emails right after you publish a post because it's fresh in your mind. You know who you referenced, and again, even if it's a link to their site, if you quoted them, if you sort of alluded to something that they said, or you shared their specific idea, send them an email. As soon as I hit publish, let's say I had 10 people that I referenced in my thing, I go look all of them up, or maybe I took a note when I referenced them and I know right where to go to get to their contact form or their email address. Go ahead and
mhm.
say, hey man, just publish this. Wanted to give you a heads up and say thanks. Really cool thing you did. That sort of thing, and just send it out immediately. Call it a done day. And then I would suggest spending an hour here and there on broken links. And so, again, no real scientific number to give you on this. For me, I would just do it like when I get tired of creating content, I feel like I need to do something a little bit different. I would shift into like broken link building for the afternoon or for an hour or two and kind of see where it takes me. And you know what I mean? Feel like I got to a
Mhm.
good stopping point, and then just to kind of mix it up. That's what I would say to you on that. Like, don't get over obsessed with it because to me, your content is still way more important than this stuff. So your content should still be the vast majority of your time, but start mixing this in. And if you want to think about, maybe like an hour a week or something like that, I think that that's a good amount to start with.
Okay.
And then check the helper reporter out daily is my suggestion and respond immediately. Those things are on, they're timed. And so like if you respond to something and like let's just say it was an email from Friday and you don't see it until Monday and you're like, oh, this is perfect. Usually the deadline is passed. Like you'll get an auto response back and say, sorry, it's too late. They didn't get your email, that sort of thing, because they're always time sensitive
Right.
stories because it's somebody working on a publishing calendar. So it's not something where you can just stock up your inbox and then go do it like in a big wave. That's why I said if it's something you can do over lunch break or whatever, it's nice to take 15 minutes and just kind of scan. And a lot of times you'll scan a list of topics and there's not going to be anything there that's of interest or loosely related to your topic, and so you just delete it and you move on. But a lot of times that there are. So definitely scan those emails daily and try to shoot for maybe one or two responses a day, and you're going to start picking up some good links there.
Cool. Yeah, the Harrow thing that's a good idea. I haven't seen that anywhere else.
Oh, really? Yeah,
No,
it's
somehow
awesome.
I missed that one, but yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think like, and I'm not saying this like toot my own horn. Like I said, as far as like the loosely called an expert sort of thing, but yeah, different sites that I had. Like I was quoted on an article on Monster.com, CareerBuilder.com, FoxBusiness.com. These kinds of sources. There was something. It was like sort of a sub thing, but it ended up being on the front page of USA Today's website. It was like one of the stories on their front page for a day, and I was
Wow.
quoted in that. I can't remember what the actual thing was. It was like some affiliated media outlet of theirs or whatever. But so I mean that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm talking about like cream of the crop, like if you were paying to advertise in those outlets, like it would be a significant amount of money, but you can get quoted for free is a pretty awesome thing. So like I've seen it work many, many times, and it's a great use of time. So, um,
Nice.
and then the proactive links. So like the directory and feedback site stuff that I shared, those are things that you should just go ahead and do now. Set aside, it might take you 30 minutes to an hour because there was only like a handful in there that I mentioned. But if you
Hmm.
just do those are one-time only things. Just do them, call it a day. Some of the directory sites, like the Alltop in particular, I've had sites where they didn't accept it at first, and then maybe you circle back a couple months later when you have more content published and go and sort of reapply to it. So if that happens, just kind of mark it in your inbox or something and circle back around to it. But those things I would do now, and one time only deal. And then the cold outreach, like I said, it's a low success rate thing. So whenever you need a break from content, it's just something else that you can mix in. But don't worry about it too terribly much. If you just come across a site, you say, "Wow, this is pretty cool. I'd like a link from that site," and you don't have any other as far as a broken link or any like great
Hmm.
reason, just send them a quick email and see what happens. So definitely that should be the least amount of your time spent there. You have plenty to do with the rest of the stuff that you have a lot more leverage and you're going to have a lot better success rate with.
Right.
All right, so I think, yeah, that was all that I had. Do you have any questions about that or anything that I talked about that just whatever questions about anything, I guess, with where you're at in the process, because that's pretty much all I had prepared for you.
Yeah, when you talk about like you were talking about like getting a quote on or getting a link related to like a muffler rebuild or whatever.
Yeah.
So when you talk about like relevant backlinks, is that because in Google's algorithm they know like they count a relevant backlink more so, or is it just like a traffic thing where people aren't going to be interested in clicking on a link that's not muffler based or whatever?
Right. Yeah, I think it's both. I mean, I think at the very
Yeah.
core of it was like, I don't know, like back, and maybe people still do this, but like would just try to get, they would get sort of crappy links and I don't know, from like blog comments and all kinds of stupid stuff that's just coming from everywhere. And so it was like, I think if there was too much of that, where your site's about baseball and 90% of your link profile is stuff that has just nothing even anywhere close to do with baseball, that just looks like spam. You know what I'm saying? Because why
Hmm.
would a baseball site have all of their links from Chinese auto part manufacturers? It just makes no sense. And so like that's the
Right.
thing about it, is it's sort of a red flag thing. So if it's one here or there, obviously you can't control everything. So if for whatever reason, you had a friend that was an auto mechanic and he mentioned you and put a link to it, like it's not like that's going to just whatever, torpedo your success. It's not like that at all. It's just about if that becomes sort of a pattern, I guess it could look kind of fishy in the eyes of Google. And
Right.
then also, like you said, I mean, the people from that site probably aren't interested in what you're talking about, but you know, um, definitely, again, it comes back to traffic. So, like an example from you want to be creative and think about. I mentioned the fitness and the stretching and stuff like that, and there's a connection there for sure. But even a little bit looser than that is totally fine. I mean, if it's a legit site, it's fine. Like if there's a connection there, and an example of that would be, and I showed you this before on the my ballpark site. My most successful post as far as traffic is concerned is about taking kids to a baseball game. When I
Hmm.
first published that, the people that I did outreach to were like parenting websites. And I was
Right.
featured a couple of times, got a couple of nice links there. And, those were really high quality links. And it made sense because I was talking about kids, and it's not directly about baseball. Their site's about parenting, but it was a connection. So you may do some stuff there where there's a fit and sort of a doing outreach into another niche. But it makes sense
Hmm.
for that post. Like that stuff's totally fine if the traffic you're driving is gonna make sense.
Cool.
Yeah. What else? Any other questions or anything else that's come up with what you're working on?
Um, well, I know I'm not going to be doing any of this,
Hmm.
but can you explain to me like what a private blog network is? And like, I know I know that that's like, Perrin was using PBN links in his project site,
Yeah.
and I know that that's a no-no
Uh-huh.
now, but I still see people mention it.
Yeah.
And like in the Facebook group, I see people mentioning it still, and I know it's not something I'm going to be doing,
Right.
but I don't even really know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I can give you a brief rundown. I've never done it for any of my sites. I know, obviously, Spencer, he's like totally against it to this point because he was like super invested in it. Even had kind of like a company that was basically providing like PBN service, and then it sort of
Right.
got taken down, I guess, by Google basically, and kind of de-indexed whatever it had linked to, and so left a bitter taste in his mouth, and so now he doesn't try it. But I do think some people do it and it still works. And basically, the gist of it is that you build up like a bunch of different blogs that have some authority. So like you almost create your own network of sites that you can link to whatever you want with that. And the
Okay.
reason that it can be complicated is because like you need to not have any of the same hosting, and all the registration, all that stuff can't be connected because that's easy for like Google or whoever to see that it's the same person that owns that and you're kind of manipulating things. And so that's the thing about a PBN is like you somehow have to be kind of secretive to where they have no idea that your 12 websites are all owned by you and connected. And so that whole process is just beyond me, but I think that that's kind of how people do it, that it looks like
I see.
10, 12 legit unconnected websites, however they do that. And, you build up some level of authority in those websites. And then when you can link to whatever, it's a way to kind of build your own links without doing this outreach and the stuff that we're talking about.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, man, I don't, I've never done it. Never will, but I'm sure people still do it, and I'm sure it can still work. But it's scary stuff to me because it's like it's a peace of mind thing,
Hmm.
and I'm not saying that it's like morally wrong or whatever. Like I have no stance on that. Like I don't care what people do, but just for me, like I would just be really worried that I wake up one day and it's all gone, like my site's doing
Right.
really well and I wake up tomorrow and holy crap, I had 4 people on my site yesterday. What happened? Um, and then that whole thing. So I just would much rather think about things in a long-term way and not do any tricks and just kind of do stuff that's legit. And that's all the stuff that we've talked about. And the thing is, like with any of this stuff, man, it's just like it's like anything in life is like the stuff that takes longer to do and the stuff that takes more effort and more thought, like that's the stuff that less people are going to do because most people want like an easy answer. Like they want to go somewhere and pay $5 and let somebody do all my link building for me and just rank, you know what I'm saying? I'll go
Right.
sit on a beach somewhere. And so like that's the sort of stuff that I think is just eventually, if it's not already, is going to be proven worthless once Google catches on to it. The stuff that can be automated and done really quickly. Like the real good link building is stuff that does take manual effort. It does take some thinking. It does take some creativity, and the stuff that we're talking about. That's the hardest stuff to replicate. So by doing this, like you're going to get links to stuff that your competitors will never be able to touch, which is awesome. Like when you respond to that Hero query and you like really knock it out of the park, and all of a sudden you're like one of the featured guys in like a really authoritative sports website or a story that some sports columnist did or somebody in fitness, like none of your competitors will ever have that link. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like that's pretty awesome. So like that's the value, and that's why this stuff is worth your time, for sure. Like this is an area where I would suggest not taking any shortcuts.
Definitely.
Yeah. Anything else question wise?
Um, there was something I think, but it's left my brain.
Okay. Let me ask you one thing. We talked about this a while back. The idea of you getting into doing some YouTube videos on baseball training stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Thoughts about that? I mean, is that still something that you want to do? Like, is it something you want to do soon? Like, what are you thinking?
It's definitely something that I want to do. I feel like in the baseball niche, um, it's pretty it's a pretty big part of the market. I feel like.
Hmm.
Um, how soon? I'm not sure because I want the quality to be good, and I want to get my first and foremost my content up. or the vast majority of my content up.
Yeah.
So, but in the not too distant future, I think that I'm going to try and shoot a video inside Easton Sports,
Okay.
where they manufacture the bats and gloves and all the stuff that Easton makes,
Mm-hmm.
baseball related. Because I have a connection there, so I'm going. That's the first sort of video thing that I think I'm going to try and do. But yeah, the short answer is I definitely want to do that.
Okay. Cool. Well, that's maybe our next call. And it's one of those things that, like, honestly, like once you have the part figured out of like, obviously you're going to need somebody to film you. I mean, I wouldn't go. You can get it. You probably could film it on a smartphone or like an HD camera. I mean, those things are readily available. I don't think you need studio quality. Maybe you need like a mic or something like that so your audio
Yeah.
sounds decent, like a lapel mic. So maybe there's a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of investment, or if you have a friend. But once you start doing that stuff, like you don't necessarily. What I was gonna say is like you can repurpose a lot of that. So like stuff you publish on YouTube can be a great traffic driver for your website. So even if your content is not fully built out, like if you want to go into creating some videos, like I definitely think it's worth your time. And then you can take your videos and kind of make them the sort of the main idea for blog posts that you're doing, or add them into the content